Hello, friends and brethren. Welcome to the newest episode of the Ways of Virtue podcast. I'm your host, Roland Morales, joined by my co-host, Chris Smith, and brother Nick Roma. We'll get to further introductions in just a moment. We just want to start out by stating that the views of this podcast do not reflect the views of the Grand Lodge of Oklahoma or any jurisdiction, nor of any lodge. The views of this podcast are simply those of us, your hosts, and our guests. So, some more introductions. Again, I'm Roland Morales, your host, joined by our co-host, Chris Smith, the Worshipful Master of Providence Lodge, number 558, who held its first stated communication as a constituted lodge yesterday. And Worshipful Chris was elected the Worshipful Master of the new lodge. So congratulations, Worshipful Brother Chris. What an accomplishment.
Thank you, Worshipful Sir. It was probably one of the most humbling things I've ever experienced in my life. To have my brothers not only appoint me and to lead them once, but to to re-elect me to stick around. It means a lot to me.
And it was beautiful to watch. That was probably the only time in my life I'd be able to see like a chartering ceremony. So thank you for inviting me to that. That was spectacular.
Thank you for being there, brother.
We're always love having you, Brother Nick, and probably a part of that ceremony was something that not very many people see happen at all, and that was the constitution and consecration of that lodge prior to the elections and the installations of officers. So we want to thank Most Worshipful Past Grand Master Glenn Cheney for performing that ceremony and the installation of the officers. And I'm sure that Providence Lodge number 558 is going to do some wonderful things in masonry in the near future and into the future. So again, congratulations, Worshipful Brother Chris. What an exciting time. Also joining us today is Brother Nick Roma. And so I will let Nick introduce himself. And before I do that, the title of this podcast is The Traveling Brother. And so Nick is a traveling brother, and we have been so blessed to have him. Brother Nick, introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Worshipful Sir. First off, let me say thank you to everybody here at Lawton, at Scott, out Triangle, and at Providence as well for being so welcoming. How you doing? I'm Nick Roma, originally from New Jersey. I was raised in New York, graduated from West Point in May of 2023. Currently about to finish up Field Artillery Bullock out here at Fort Sill. And so I've been traveling around a little bit, lodges in New York, lodges in South Carolina where my family's at now. I've probably been to about, almost close to a dozen lodges here in Oklahoma. Joined the Scottish Rite while I was here, had the opportunity to do that at the fall reunion. So just trying to get around as much as I can and see as much as I can. And then from here, I'll be going to Colorado, out near Colorado Springs, where from what I understand, there's a bunch of lodges there as well.
Fort Carson.
Yep, Fort Carson, 4th ID, 2nd Striker Brigade, 277 FA.
Which is where I was from too, ironically.
There you go.
Military.
The Ivy Division.
Well, we have certainly been blessed to have you, and it's been our pleasure. What a breath of fresh air you have breathed into masonry all over, like you said, not only Lawton Lodge 183, but Providence and several lodges in this surrounding area. So we've been really fortunate to have you, Brother Nick, and congratulations on your upcoming graduation from the Basic Officer Leadership Course. I know the Army is fortunate to have you. So good luck in your future career, and certainly hope we see you back here later on in your career at the Captain's Career Course. So
Absolutely.
all right. So before we get started, a couple of announcements. Very special congratulations, and it's probably late coming, but we want to give a very special congratulations to Brother Scott Back and the Brothers of Mangum Lodge and the young men of a brand new Demolay chapter, the Nemesis Demolay chapter in Mangum, Oklahoma. That chapter will be installing its officers on the 23rd. Let me make sure I get that right. Nope, that's wrong, on December 16th. So if you're in the area and you have an opportunity to go visit those young men and being installed in a brand new chapter, please do that. That's an exciting time for them. So congratulations to you all in Mangum. We want to offer special condolences to a brother much in the same situation that Brother Nick was. We had a brother come through here, and being in Lawton at an Army town, we're fortunate enough to have some visiting brothers come to us quite often. And we had a brother come to us who was active, a lot like Brother Nick, and he went off on his Army career. He has kept in touch with some brothers here, and he recently suffered a tragedy. So our prayers go out to our brother in Hawaii and his family in this tragic time. So, brother, if you see this, just know that our prayers are with you. Just also want to give a quick reminder that Lawton Lodge 183's Cornerstone Academy, our district school, is coming up on January 13th. So again, if you haven't signed up for that, please sign up for that. We look forward to having a great school of instruction on that day. Brother Chris, did I miss anything?
No, well, I mean, there's so much going on this month, but I think you covered the basics that we were going to talk about.
All right. Well, Brother Nick, like I said a while ago, being in an Army town right here in Lawton, Fort Sill area, we're definitely blessed to have visiting brothers come through this area. And sometimes they come by just for a visit. Very rarely do we get a brother that comes by and is as active as you. So what a pleasure you have been. You're going to be missed when you graduate, and we do congratulate you again. So tell us a little bit about your traveling experience as a brother prior to coming to Lawton.
So I guess kind of getting to that. My first ever exposure to masonry was from a family friend, and they kind of had like a military background as well. One of my good friends was raised in New Jersey right at the end of high school because the age there was 18. And so he was already raised a Master Mason by the time he went off to the Naval Academy at Annapolis. His father was a Master Mason, still is, widow's son, gets involved in a lot of organizations like that. And so they kind of exposed me to what Masonry was. And it was one of those like pancake breakfasts that like every lodge does. And so that was kind of my first exposure. And I was like, what do Masons do? And he's like, they take good men and they make them better. And I was like, simple enough. So the idea of wanting to be a Mason has kind of always been in my brain since like high school, because I saw the things that, that my friend and his family were doing. And I was like, I want to be a part of that. I want to do what they do because I like what they do. So when I graduated high school in 2015, I was very busy, so I couldn't really get to it the way I wanted to. I was, going to Stevens for biomedical engineering, didn't work out. I had to find a way to pay for school, so I enlisted in the Army. And so that kind of put like all of my plans on hold for a while. While I was enlisted, I dropped a packet to go to West Point, got accepted, went to the prep school first, then to like the actual academy. And so for the 5 years that I was there, that was like the first time in my life that I was in a stable enough position where I could kind of, spend the brain power and have the time to do something like that, right? Because I know there are lodges out there that'll do like the 1 day degree things, but at least the one up in New York and Highland Falls,
There's something similar.
I see the value in that, but me personally, I really enjoyed taking the time to space them all out. It took me about a year and a half, start from finish to get everything done. So COVID happened. I had reached out via the Grand Lodge of New York website. They connected me to the lodge in Highland Falls, West Point number 877. And my good friend and mentor, brother Damian King, worshipful brother Damian King, had reached out to me. We had like a dialogue going on. And it wasn't until we got back from COVID, so like the end of my sophomore year, the start of my junior year, that I actually started the process in earnest. So I started going to the lodge on off lodge nights. Got initiated, passed, raised. I got raised in April of 2023, and then I graduated in May, so it was out the door after that. But I had a lot of opportunities. Like immediately as soon as I got initiated, they would make sure to open the lodge, on the EA. And even when I went to go visit other lodges like Hudson Valley, they made sure to drop it down so I could attend. So I always felt welcomed, even as an EA.
That's how it was for me too. I never had a meeting where I couldn't go in, even though I was an EA for Feathercraft. Taking time.
It was such a nice experience because all of the brothers were really welcoming. And a lot of them were like, oh, the young 20-something guy. I'm always the youngest at lodge. But nobody ever gave me anything for it. Nobody ever gave me any grief about it. Everybody was just super excited to have me there, and they tolerated all my questions. So very quickly after that, I got, they threw me into some degree work. I did like the working tools for EA for another permanent party member at West Point who was getting initiated. So I did the working tools. And so that kind of started me on the path, like, okay, like now I have this skill, right? Now I can go to other lodges, and if they need somebody to fill in, I can do that. I got the opportunity to meet a particularly influential brother who was a Prince Hall Mason, and then was at Hudson Valley. When I saw how he delivered his working tools brief, I was like, that's the standard. That's spectacular. I want that passion in it. I want that attention to detail in it. And it was great to watch.
Funny how a good ritualist can have that kind of impact.
100% true. And I think there are a lot of really great ritualists here, especially after the course that everybody did over at Grand Lodge.
The Grand School of Instruction?
Yes. Yes. I think that was a spectacular program, and I wish I got the opportunity to do that. But there are a lot of really good ritualists here that kind of make me excited to do the ritual again. So from there, I graduated. My family was in South Carolina, and it took me a while to get my dues card, but my lodge prepared me really well as far as like the ritual for EA and the ritual for Feathercraft. So even though I didn't have my dues card, I got examined everywhere I went, and I felt confident and I was proficient that I could withstand like examination. It was never a problem for me. And the brothers who examined me were never like confrontational about it. Adversarial. It was always like, all right, you don't have your dues card. This is the old-fashioned way. And so I went to a lodge in my family lives like near Charleston, so I lived in Somerville. There's a lot in Somerville I went to, which was spectacular. I got to go tour the Grand Lodge of Boston, and now I'm here in Oklahoma, so I've been to Guthrie. I've been to Apache, Comanche, Cache Valley, Lawton, Mount Scott, Triangle, and so I've kind of been all over the place. And one thing that I think that I've seen that all of these lodges have in common is a lot of military members. That always kind of makes me feel at home. I know both of you, Worshipful Brothers, are prior military, and so I know that you guys you get it as far as like the schedule and the lifestyle goes. But the idea that no matter where I go, where I get stationed, whether it's stateside, like in Fort Carson, or even, if I go to South Korea, there are Oklahoma, Prince Hall lodges over there. I don't know for a fact if Grand Lodge of New York recognizes them, but, I'm sure there are other lodges there. But no matter where I go in the world, there are brothers, and a lot of them are going to understand the whole military lifestyle and me being transient about that.
Amazing.
Amazing when I was in the military, but man, I wish I was. I'm jealous. That's awesome.
Amazing story. So you said you were raised in April of 2023. Remind me when you got here at Fort Sill.
I showed up here towards the end of July, sir.
So newly raised, and we've talked about the decline in membership versus the decline in masonry, and you're really an example that there is not a decline in masonry. You've really shown that and proven that here. So yes, that brought you to Oklahoma. So tell us how you ended up here. How did you end up walking through the doors of 183?
So interestingly enough, New York has a system as far as like the dues card process goes, and this is just our opinion. We're not promoting any group, but they use a service called Amity that issues pretty much a permanent dues card with a QR code. And so any Tyler can scan that QR code with their phone and validate that I'm a Mason in good standing. And it's got my picture on it, so you can make sure that my dues card matches with my face and that I didn't just acquire it from somewhere. And so the Amity service also has like an app with a map. And you can put in like your current location and it'll be like, these are the lodges that are closest to you. It tells you whether or not they're recognized by my Grand Lodge. And it also tells me the days that they meet. So I was on the app, I had moved in. I didn't know anybody in the area. So I just took a look at what lodges were there and I was like, oh, it's Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of the month. This lodge is meeting. It's Mount Scott. And so I just assumed the most formal. I threw on a dark suit that I had. I saw the lodge meeting and I was like, all right, I don't know if they do collation before or after the meeting here. So I'm just going to go about 10 minutes prior. Drove over there. It's about 15 minutes from base. Come in the front door. I go in the kitchen and a whole bunch of like Mason's wives are looking at me like, who's this guy? And they're like, that way. And, so I work my way in a suit. Everybody there is in jeans and collared shirts and everything. And I'm overdressed, but, always assume more formal.
Always better to be overdressed than underdressed.
Yeah. You experienced Oklahoma formal when you walked in.
I like it. The cowboy boots, the jeans, and then the suit jacket. I dig that, sir.
Well, ironically, I was the one that he ran into. So
yes,
he got the immediate spectrum from cowboys and boots all the way to Providence style and everything.
You were the junior deacon that night?
Mm-hmm. I was one of the ones that examined you.
Yes, you examined me, and then I think Brother Josh and Kenny were witnesses, and so they kind of got to see the differences. Because when you examine, right, you're from California originally, but you use Oklahoma language, and so when you were going through the ritual, they were a little taken aback by the differences in words, and you were like, just keep rolling with it. It's fundamentally all the same. The language is different, but the content is functionally the same. Ran through Entered Apprentice and Fellowcraft, and Master Mason, the word, the grip, all that stuff. And
he did have proper emails and everything from the Grand Lodge by the time I saw him. So
I brought
was properly vouched for. But it was great. That was the first time I actually got to what's the word? That's not investigate. Examine. Examine a new brother that just showed up.
Yeah.
I was quite, who's this guy coming in a suit from West Point? What do you have here?
Good practice for everybody. That's a skill that everybody should brush up on.
Good candidate for a brother fire saw one.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
by the way, I think it's ironic that his mother lodge's number is 877, and my mother lodge, when they finally got their charter, is now number 877 too.
Oh, nice coincidence. Well, I'm sure you consider it fortunate that you have that Amity system, but we certainly are fortunate that they have that, and you found us. And talk a little bit more about your experience. I mean, you've already talked about how active you have been, and you have been very active. Let's go back to what you talked about earlier in the ritual. Kind of some differences in the ritual and in your experience with. I know I, for one, tried to get you a little bit involved in our ritual. You were a little bit uncomfortable with it, but we can tell that you are a good ritualist. So explain a little bit more about your experience just when you got here, what you've gained. I know we've gained a great deal from you, but what have you gained as far as visiting us with Lodge and sitting with us and being parts of, witnessing degrees and things like that?
So there are several, I'm going to call them cultural differences. There are several cultural differences that I've noticed between like the New York Masons and the Oklahoma Masons. First being, I guess, some of the furniture in the lodge. So in New York, one of the things that, I've seen in my lodge is like the rough and the perfect ashlar being like situated prominently in.
We did have those in California as well.
Yep. And so like it's all of these things, right, are just like very minor like details, but they're just interesting nuances between the two. You also have the picture of the boat. That's a cultural difference.
Or a boat.
Yeah. I noticed that both lodges, right, in common have the pictures of certain like founding fathers. And so like that's something I was like, okay, that's similar. As far as like Masonic conduct, like during the lodge goes, I know that everybody who has seen me in lodge has seen me come to like the sign of fidelity. Whenever I'm being addressed or I'm speaking to like an officer, I've had to explain that a couple times.
We don't do that in California, but I have heard of it. That's a good. I think that's a good thing. I'm gonna start doing it in memory of you once you leave.
Thank you.
People ask me, I'm like, I'm doing it for Nick.
So like one thing I really respect about the Oklahoma Masons is that they all have like that the good reverence towards like the worshipful master, where if they're speaking, they get up and they speak. And I think that the sign of fidelity is good because it kind of reinforces that. It's like if you're speaking, it's like you are standing up, you are projecting, don't just like be from your seat and then like you just say like stand up. You know what I mean? Be up, stand up.
I hate to say keep in, but back in my mother's jurisdiction, they actually have to sign every time they talk to the master too. And I kind of don't. I mean, it's nice, but it gets old, and a lot of people, do the sign quickly. It kind of degrades a little bit, and I kind of like the sign of fidelity a little better. It's simple, but yet it gets the point across. Like when did you say you do it when they're working the altar?
You do it when you're at prayer. You do it during work at the altar, and then you do it when being addressed either individually or collectively by a senior officer, or when addressing the same. Those are all times at which you come to the sign of fidelity.
And correct me if I'm wrong. It's just simply your right arm across your body, forming a right angle.
Yep, fingers extended and joined over the torso, right angle with the arm, parallel with the marching surface.
I like it.
That was interesting. I know I was one of the ones that asked you what that meant. So it's interesting, and it is interesting. I like that. So earlier you said one of the first things that interested you in Masonry was the fact that you knew it made good men better. Do you feel like simply being a Mason makes a good man better? Or do you think it's more along the lines that Masonry provides the tools and the means to instruct a good person how to become a better person?
I think it's like a chicken or the egg question. So it's like, to use like a parallel, it's like every once in a while somebody will talk about like distinguished graduates who come from West Point. And it's like, okay, does West Point make distinguished graduates, like people who go off and do good things? Or do people who have the capacity to do that pursue West Point? And I think the same is with Masonry. I think that you have to be a certain type of person. Oh, that's my alarm to come join the podcast. I think you have to be a certain kind of person to pursue Masonry and to continue in Masonry. And I think that to that kind of person, Masonry offers tools for men to live more balanced lives, more centered lives, more ethical and upright lives. But all of the tools in Masonry would be wasted on somebody who isn't already a good person.
Very well put.
Yes, very, very well put. We have a talk without giving away too much. There's a current talk on reaching the summit and the parallels between climbing Mount Everest and our journeys as Masons, or our journeys as professionals or leaders. And without giving away too much of that, it's very important to know that none of that would mean anything if there was not a desire for a person to make that journey up that mountain. And I think that alludes to what you were speaking about. It does take a certain kind of person. A person that needs to have that desire in them to be a better person, as good a person as they can be. And Masonry provides some amazing tools to allow us to grow as men and fathers and friends and brothers. So let me make sure I kind of wrote down a few notes. So now that you're about to move on from us here in Lawton, how do you think your experience here in Lawton has prepared you for your future Masonic journey?
I will say that this community here has exceeded all expectations I had before I came here. I have, even just observing the interactions between other Masons here, I see genuine affection and care and fraternal love for each other that to me has permanently imprinted on me. And now whenever I think of the fraternity, I'm like, this is what it needs to be. This is what it should be. So like in that aspect, it's just the types of Masons that have been exposed to here are the example that I want to be. And so they've set sort of like an example for how I want to behave. And also I've gotten a lot of really great mentors, like you yourself, brother, and yourself, worshipful sir. You're gonna be people I always talk to whenever I have questions and want to bounce ideas off of. As far as like what have I learned here and what have I been exposed to here that I can carry forward, I did the whole Scottish Rite here, and so being exposed to that side of Freemasonry, like beyond
Just
Blue
Scottish
Lodge.
Rite, you went to Guthrie.
I went to the Scottish Rite, the one as far as I'm
The one.
concerned. That place is gorgeous, and the people there are incredible.
Yes, they are.
And so getting exposed to that whole thing, like outside of Blue Lodge Masonry, being able to get a little more in depth, on some of the things that were covered during the first 3 degrees. And then I also have like an interest in like the more esoteric side of things, kindled by you. Thank you for that. Spent a lot of money on books because of you.
Yeah, well, you get your money back.
That's
in
fair.
knowledge.
That's fair. So like being able to see all of this and learn about all of this, whether it's just how to be a better person or whether it's, like esoteric studies, those are things that I'm going to take with me when I go to Colorado, and I'm just going to build on. They've become part of the foundation.
Well, you've become part of ours also. I know that not only the brothers of the lodges that you visit, but the family members and everybody, you've made a huge impact, and you will not be forgotten when you move on. Again, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Brother Chris, any
Very proud.
Bittersweet.
Yes.
closing thoughts you have, Brother Chris?
I just want to say it was beautiful to experience, you coming and getting to find a family home away from home. And knowing, you'll find another one when you go to Colorado. I have no doubt. That's where I was stationed. It's a beautiful place. I was not a Mason. I wish I was and got that kind of, instant family experience. I'm not jealous. I'm proud. And that's a good way to put it. I'm glad that we were able to give that experience to you. I mean, this day and age and social media and all that, I'm sure we'll stay in touch. You're going to be back around. As Worshipful said, you probably come back for captain school someday. So we will see you in the future. But I just want to say, thank you for coming.
Of course.
And thank you for being a friend more than a brother. It was great to get to know you, my buddy.
Absolutely.
A wonderful brother. And so, Nick, again, thank you for coming, and we are going to miss you. Best of luck to you, and you have made all of us better by your presence here. And well, I guess really, before we sign off, this is a podcast to promote our fraternity, and not only promote it, to improve it, but on the flip side of that, we want to know what we need to improve and what we should improve. So, Brother Nick, are there any suggestions that you have that things we could have done better to make your stay here more enjoyable?
Now, these are questions.
There is nothing that you could have done more than you haven't already done. The comment I'm going to make, I think, would apply towards Masonry in general. I think especially after COVID and especially after college, right? Young men are looking for social connections, right? To feel connected to their community. I'm lucky that I found Masonry and I kind of have that. I don't think a lot of young men know what masonry is in that aspect or how it can help them. And I think that especially when it comes to learning, right, how to like socialize as adult men in a professional world where we all stay busy, the idea of mentorship is especially important. And the relationship I've had with you in particular, and all of the brothers here in general, has been very helpful to me as somebody who uproots my life, every 1 or 3 years. And I think that what masonry has the opportunity to do a little bit better is to find a way to make young men feel more welcome. Some young men don't have suits. They don't know how to buy suits. They don't know how to tailor suits. They've never been in like a professional setting. Some young men don't know like how to go out and meet other men. It could be a very intimidating thing to meet strangers. And I think if there's one thing that masonry can do better, it's to, not advertise, right? Because masonry doesn't solicit, but be like, hey, this is where men meet. This is where good men meet. And if you want to be a good man, this might be for you.
I think that's an important point you put on too. You don't have to know already how to dress up and everything to come to a meeting like that with us. That's the idea, is to teach you how to do those things so that you can flourish in your professional life.
Mm-hmm.
Very wonderful closing words. I love that. And we'll close with this. We have a lot of brothers that watch this podcast. And again, we receive a lot of positive feedback and we appreciate all the positive feedback. But I think you can see now that our message is not only for our brothers. We have message that needs to be spread to other people and other young men in our society today. So brothers, friends, if you know a young man that needs to hear these words, please share this message with them. We look forward to hearing from them and hearing from you more suggestions and more words. And you'll want to join us next time we broadcast, and we'll give you a little bit more heads up the next time before we do broadcast. But our next guest is somebody that you won't want to miss. So until next time, brother, may peace and harmony prevail. Until next time, goodbye.